Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Haku stared with wide gray eyes as his father lunged for him. The man had retrieved the knife that had always been kept in the storage shed and bore down on his child, the blade already tinted crimson. Forgotten in the corner lay Haku's murdered mother. Her bloody handprints stained the wall beside her. The young boy was screaming as he stumbled in retreat, but beneath his terror he felt his insides boil as he was consumed with the will to survive. Mama. No. Please. Haku dodged his father's deadly strike, tumbling down to the hard, wood floor. Still her body lay unmoving. Her face was hidden by the frantic tangle of her dark hair. The boy backed away from his father, who was shouting unintelligibly at him to hold still. Haku cowered back to a far wall, bumping into a bucket of water his mother had brought in barely a half-hour before. Haku squatted in the fresh snow, curiously observing the remnants of a snowman he had made the day before. It had melted and then refrozen into a thin layer of ice in the frigid morning air. His mother watched him from afar as she fed the chickens. Life on a farm was simple, peaceful and something she had always wanted for her Haku. Before she had made her home in the farming town with her husband, her life had been troubled by shinobi wars. So long as she drew breath, she had sworn, her son would have no part in the violence. She noticed him crack through the sheet of ice with a delighted chirp. Haku, don't play in that water, you'll catch a cold. She called out to him. He was too busy playing to pay her any mind. The cold water stung his bare hands and he drew them back in a startled gasp. Ack! His interest was quickly drawn to the glistening, frozen puddle he had discovered. He traced a small finger over the surface and smiled sweetly at his rippled reflection. In a harmonious moment of nature meeting human inquisitiveness, Haku had inadvertently tapped his chakra for the first time. A shining thread of water rose up from the puddle, surprising him. He watched in awe as the droplet followed gracefully as he waved his hand about. Haku brought up his other hand that was puckered red from the cold. He slowly shaped the water with both hands as he would a handful of clay. It was fascinating how easy it was to manipulate, almost like magic. It felt like a natural thing to do. Amazing. Haku purred in delight, attracting his mother's attention again, and she dropped her bird feed in shock. She ran over to him and dropped to her knees, and watched in stunned horror as Haku shaped the water into a small sphere. Mama, look what I can do. The boy was very pleased with his handiwork. I have special powers, Mama. I can make the water. She cut him off, seizing both of his wrists. Haku looked up her, rattled, and the sphere splashed uselessly back into its place of origin. Her face was racked with panic. It unnerved him. He had never seen her so worried. Mama. His mother dropped one of his hands, and slapped his cheek in warning. It had been hard enough to get his full attention. Immediately, Haku squealed and recoiled in pain, cradling his injured face with his free hand. Mama, he said softly, feeling a warm tear slide down his cheek. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do anything wrong. He looked up at her again, and saw that she had begun to cry as well. He was not able to understand it, that day, why she had been so upset by his discovery. Suddenly she pulled her son into a tight hug, burying her face into his ebony hair. Haku, never do that again, do you understand me? You must stay safe. Her voice was stern, but it cracked as she continued, please, never do that again, don't let your father see. He clung to her, sobbing, oh Mama, I'm so sorry. I promise, I'll hide it. You little monster. Hold still. His father swung his knife again, slicing Haku's shoulder. Papa, no. Haku was howling, terrified, scrambling along the wall. His shoulder throbbed, and his desperate screams went unheard. The frightened boy tripped over the bucket of water his mother had fetched earlier and knocked it down. Its contents spilled out onto the floor, causing his father to slip. The water. His memory from earlier returned once he noticed the water. Maybe it could protect him. Papa. Stop! Haku cried out. He felt a magnetic and instinctual pull help him grip the water. His energy surged with a rush of adrenaline and something else, something that gathered in his stomach and flowed out to all parts of his body. The temperature in the house dropped abruptly, stupefying his assailant. A gust of wind swirled as a tremendous power drew on the moisture in the air. Monster! His father was incomprehensible upon seeing his son's mysterious power. Before his father could bring the knife down, Haku let his instinct take over. His desperation to survive opened the floodgates of his power as energy poured out of him and ice pillars filled the room from all directions. The child's eyes were wide. His father stood motionless and his weapon clattered noisily to the floor. Haku had impaled him through the center of his chest. Holes had been punched through the roof and walls. The young boy clapped his hands over his mouth in shock as he watched his father slide sickeningly down to the floor. Haku hid in his room after he and his mother had discovered his power. He stood quietly by the door and eavesdropped. "You lied to me," his father's voice boomed, shaking him. He heard his mother's response, "Darling, please," she was crying, I never knew it would be passed down to Haku, we are peaceful. You have nothing to fear. You're one of them, one of those clan people." His father snarled. Haku could hear a glass object being shattered. "Please. I never meant any harm, I'm sorry." Her voice was pleading. Haku became extremely uneasy as he listened to his father's shouting. Never had he heard the man speak so angrily in his life. He knew something was very wrong. "He's a monster. You're a monster." Haku's eyes welled with tears. "Papa thinks I'm a monster. We'll keep it a secret. He won't hurt anyone." She was begging now, "No one else will know." Haku listened and it was uncannily quiet. After a moment, he heard his father speak. "Yes, no one will know." There was a pause, and then, his mother screamed. Haku gasped, "Mama!" He raced out of his bedroom and into the fracas. He watched in terror as his father pulled a knife out of his mother's side and she slumped to the floor. Utter disbelief was visible on Haku's face. He stood rooted to the spot as his father approached. Haku trudged through the snow as tears ran freely down his bright red cheeks. His bare feet ached as he trekked through the snow. His farm was out of sight now, as well as his parents. Just as he had been taught that crops and animals could die, so too could his parents. Now he was alone. "Mama," he muttered to himself. He had never known such grief before. He wandered all the way into town and fumbled along down the street. Haku then felt something cold land on the end of his nose. A snowflake. It was beginning to snow and Haku felt his heart sink lower in his stomach. Things were not going to get easier for him. His shoulder no longer hurt and had stopped bleeding, but he could not comprehend why his father had done what he did. He dashed under the cover of a bridge and dusted the white powder off of his ragged clothes. Haku sat down on the ground, incapable of crying anymore. Instead, he wondered how he was going to proceed. The temperature was dropping and his stomach was growling. Haku could not deny his hunger. "Oh, be quiet," he mumbled. He sighed in exhaustion. It had been a long walk, and on top of his heartache he was cold and ravenous. "What's going to happen to me?" Haku pondered as he felt his eyelids droop, almost considering a nap. A cold breeze instantly sobered him, and he scooted closer to the edge of the overhang. He sat in silence for a long while, until time seemed to lose all meaning. After a while, snow thickly blanketed the ground. It was then something caught his attention, the soft treading of footsteps. They were close. Haku watched as a man passed by. It was a very tall man with short, black hair. He looked formidable in a flak vest and his face was hidden by bandages. Haku observed with wide, discerning eyes as the man halted and sensed his presence. The man with the bandaged face glanced over at him curiously and stared at him for a moment. Their gazes locked, and Haku had a strange unexplainable moment of kinship with the stranger. Haku could not put his finger on the reason why, but he knew that this person would understand him. For a moment he was tempted to speak, but he thought better of it. Haku averted his gaze, nearly embarrassed. Disinterested, the man looked away, and as quickly as he appeared, he vanished. Haku felt his insides twist. Something was strange about that man, plainly different from other people. He almost felt inclined to stand up and run after him. Maybe it had been a mistake not to ask for help. Still, he hesitated. Haku had been just as intimidated by the man's gaze as he had been intrigued. To speak to him seemed nearly out of the question. All Haku knew at that moment was fear. There were other people in town. They might offer food or shelter, if he was fortunate. Hunger took over his mind at last. Food was absolutely imperative for his survival. Haku stood up, and tottered out into the snow shower. He stood in the middle of the street where he had seen the man, yet it was now empty. Again, disappointment seized Haku. He had waited too long and now the stranger was gone. Haku sulked down the abandoned road, his heart feeling numb. The snow may have begun to freeze it and now all rational thought seemed to be slipping away just as the tall man had. Then, a smell. Haku caught the scent of something edible. His head snapped to his left, where a garbage can stood. The boy experienced a moment of repulsion, hoping he would not have to pick through refused to find food, but his empty stomach urged him on. On tiptoe the young child peered into the trash can, hoping for anything that would appease his hunger. A growl came from behind him. The dog was small but glaring daggers at him, likely just as hungry as he was. Haku would not have his one chance of nourishment be taken away. He was prepared to fight for it. "This is mine," Haku hissed in a hoarse voice, "don't even try it." The mud bristled, obviously starving. The child could sympathize for it on a small level. In a way, he and the dog had much in common. They were both alone, cold and famished. But Haku had something that the dog did not. "I have special powers," Haku warned, hoping to unnerve an animal that had no ability to understand him. It only growled in response, and then leapt at him, not at all threatened. Haku's eyes narrowed. This was no challenge. He deserved to live far more than the dog did. Fighting was, after all, in his blood. He evaded the dog's snapping jaws, and delivered it a rough yet ungraceful kick in the stomach. The animal crumpled to the ground in pain, whining pathetically. Haku was startled. He had never had to compete with another for survival before. Earlier he had saved his own life and now he was struggling to make it on his own. Fighting, although instinctual, was still very new to him. It had by now occurred to him that defending himself would be one of his most important life skills. Haku watched with sad eyes as the dog skittered away. "I'm sorry," he whispered, feeling sympathy for the animal. Again he peered into the garbage can and did not find much that was edible. However, a half-eaten apple looked rather inviting, even if the skin was beginning to turn brown. Desperate, Haku lunged for it, snatching the precious morsel. He sat down next to the garbage can and sniffed the apple inquisitively. It was not really fit for eating, but still, food was food. "Boy," Haku dropped the apple in surprise, he had not noticed anyone nearby. He turned and saw a man who he did not at all recognize. This one was an older, overweight fellow wearing a very concerned expression. Haku regarded him carefully and said nothing, and then finally picked up his apple again. "Boy," the man repeated, "what are you doing out in the cold?" Haku detected a hint of compassion in the man's voice. Maybe he has better food than this. Haku wondered. He put the apple down and looked up at the man with beseeching, storm-colored eyes. His voice was soft. "I have no place to go." The fat man seemed alarmed. "No place to go, little guy?" He was replied, and then asked, "Where are your parents?" Haku knew the answer. "Dead." But different words left his mouth, trying to cover up what had really transpired. I don't have any parents, mister," he answered quietly. The fat man nodded in understanding and a sort of sorrowful look came over his face. "I'm sorry to hear that," the fat man said. "Well, that makes two of us, then. I didn't have any parents either." Haku's eyes lit up quickly with an idea. "He's like me. Maybe I can stay with him." He had passed up the opportunity earlier, and it may not be wise to do so a second time. If his survival depended on it, he would find someone to connect with. Do you have any food, mister? Haku asked, this time in a bit louder of a voice. The fat man seemed to have expected the question. You look like you could eat a horse, I bet. The stranger said, sure. I bet I've got something to spare. Follow me. Haku eagerly followed the fat man, his stomach writhing in pain. He scampered after the man down the street and around a corner. There he beheld a large cart brimming with supplies, and yes, food at last. Haku rushed up to the cart and helped himself, reaching into a paper bag, and withdrew a slice of bread. The fat man chuckled, go right ahead. Take what you need. Here, let me fix you some of this stew. A friend gave me more than enough for my trip. Haku nodded while he bit large pieces out of the bread. His older companion spooned stew into a bowl for him and handed it to him with another slice of bread. With a sigh he sat down next to Haku on the cart and watched him eat. Sadness was visible in his eyes. You know, little guy, the man said softly, you aren't the only orphan in the water country, it's really quite a shame what goes on in these lands. So many families have been torn apart. Haku sat quietly and listened, chomping his bread with thankful bites. When I was young, I had no one to look after me either, the man admitted. I lost my parents and had to depend on a schoolteacher until I was old enough to take care of myself. I know how hard it is for you, and how hard it will continue to be for you. Haku nearly choked on a wedge of potato and finally slowed down, carefully lapping up the stew and kept his attention on the man. The round man had possibly saved his life, Haku noted. Knowing his limitations and that he had won the stranger's sympathy, Haku decided to beg for the man's help, as graciously as he could. Please mister, you're very nice. I am a hard worker and I can read and write a little. I know that we just met, but, will you let me stay with you? His voice was timid, nearly quaking. The fat man observed Haku for a moment, still with those sad eyes. It may not do much good to stay with me. I'm sorry little one, but I'm afraid I have no shelter to offer you. I'm a merchant, and I'm on my way to Kuro to do some trading business up there. Nearly all I do is travel, and I haven't the money to buy a home yet. I may not be the person you can depend on. He explained. Haku felt panic rise within him, and tears welled up in his eyes. Please mister. Please let me come with you. I don't want to be alone. Haku squeaked as he attached himself to the sleeve of the man's yukata. The man sighed again. He could not give the boy a home, but accompanying him was another matter. The poor child was only asking for companionship. He then nodded in acceptance to Haku, smiling wistfully. All right then little fellow, don't fret. I'll let you come with me for as long as you like, or, until better care can be found for you. The fat man decided, do you have a name? Haku appeared overjoyed, I'm Haku. The fat man laughed heartily at the boy's smiling face, nice to meet you, Haku. Haku felt a sudden swelling of hope inside his chest. I promise mister, I'll help you with your work and I'll never cause you any trouble. In his excitement, he nearly tugged the man's arm off, but the man was only happy he could help. All right, settle down there Haku. And my name is Hiroshi, if you don't mind. Haku wore a jubilant grin, I don't mind at all sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hiroshi chuckled to himself and privately wondered what he was getting himself into. Haku was really a rather energetic and simple bundle of joy. It was not difficult to bring a smile to the child's face. And Hiroshi quickly realized that Haku had the same effect on him. Child of the wind country. Quote. I could never love you Gaara, in fact I hate you. I hate you for taking her away from me. Gaara stood, observing his uncle with disbelieving eyes. How could this be happening? How could this be real? Uncle, Karura never wanted to die, and she's dead because of you. You're the reason my sister is dead. Gaara felt tears sting at his light green eyes. His mother died because of him. Yoshimaru grunted in pain, His body was crushed and his death was drawing ever closer thanks to his red-headed nephew's sand. You've never known what your name means, have you? His uncle growled, biting back the agony of his mangled body. Gaara stood, tears flowing freely down his cheeks. His uncle, the only person he believed had ever cared for him, had tried to assassinate him. But what hurt him more than the idea of Yoshimaru himself trying to kill him, were his dying words. Gaara, a demon that loves only itself, that's what you are. Yoshimaru spat, glaring at the broken-hearted 6-year-old. Your mother named you that in hopes that if you lived, you would live to curse the village responsible for your creation. A demon? Am I evil? Gaara was confounded. The news was too much for him to take in all at once. Yoshimaru smirked at his nephew as his eyes drifted shut, and you know what, Gaara? The red-haired boy stood quivering by his uncle, paralyzed with fear and sorrow. Karuro was right. After a moment, Yoshimaru's shuddering body was still and silent. Gaara observed the passing man with narrowed eyes, the tears slowing, as his thoughts swirled in a storm of anguish. Gaara walked down the street, his feelings deeply hurt, as usual. Monster. Why did that boy say that to me? The red-haired child wondered. I only wanted to help him. He recalled the other children in his village playing ball together. He yearned to join them, to be a part of them and to not have to be alone. At one point the ball had escaped their grasp, and he only meant to return it to them. But they were afraid of him, terrified. Some screamed at the mere sight of him. It pained him to hear those shrieks of fear, and watch them scatter like grains of sand in the wind. He never meant to harm anyone, but none of the other children made the effort to get to know him. Gaara only wished them to stay, to keep him company for whatever time they could spare. When they fled from the ball yard he reached out to them, his sand partially preventing their escape. It was just an innocent gesture, a cry for love that no one understood. But they were horrified and unwilling to accept his power. Unwilling to accept him. He had hurt the other children when they struggled to flee. He saw it happen, though he would never hurt them intentionally. I never meant to. Yet Gaara was still determined to prove that they had no reason to fear him, and no reason to run away when he approached. So he visited the young boy's house in the hopes of apologizing because his injuries had been the worst. He had even brought ointment with the intent of easing his pain. He came to the door and then. Monster. The door quickly slammed shut. Why did he say that when I only wanted to help? Could he ever make a friend? A moment later he left, walking in contemplative silence down the street. You filthy little demon. I saw what you did today. We're all better off without the likes of you. Gaara's attention snapped to the man who had berated him. It was salt on a raw wound. He had no desire to be a monster, and he did not view himself as one, but every other person must have seen something different from what Gaara thought he saw in the mirror. Why does it have to be this way? Does no one want me? My brother and sister are scared of me. Dad is scared of me. Everyone. He had no way to stop it. The pain willed his sand into action, in a violent effort to end his torment. To silence the cutting words. The man barely made one more jeering taunt before sand swiftly wrapped around him. Moments before rationality reinstated itself, the confrontation was over. Gaara killed that man on the street and no one had seen him do it. It was a horrific sight, and as Gaara came out of his rage he quickly realized his crime. Was it right to defend oneself if the assault went straight to the heart? He fled, wishing there was a welcoming place to go. He left the man dead in the alleyway, secretly praying that he had not proved his cruel words true. Gaara. A demon that loves only itself. The words thundered in his ears, the last words of his beloved uncle. The person he had killed in defense of his life. Gaara felt a distant roar inside him, coaxing him to let go, to stop trying to understand how unjust the world was. I'm alone. I'll always be alone. His insides burned. It hurt. The inescapable pain of the truth. You don't need these worthless humans. Gaara felt his heart miss a beat. What was that voice? So placating, and yet savagery and bitterness stitched into every fiber of its voice. Is it me? Or is it what's inside of me? Gaara could no longer ignore the words of the tailed beast imprisoned within him. We are all that matter now, they mean nothing. Gaara clapped his hands over his ears, futilely attempting to ignore the barbarous voice. No, Gaara cried, leave me alone. I'm not a monster. The thing, he could feel it grinning. Of course you are. Why else would they treat you so unfairly? No. Gaara sank to his knees. For a moment it was quiet, and then the voice returned, louder and more aggressive than before. Let me out. I can save us. We can be free, make them suffer for what they've done. No, I won't hurt anyone else. Never again. Gaara staggered to his feet, still covering his ears. Despite his pleas and protests, inside, he felt himself giving in. He felt the brutality of the thing within him soothe him, somehow making it seem alright to kill, to inflict pain on others. Let me out. No. Gaara was screaming, running down the street with a newfound speed. His eyes fell upon the open gates of his village, and then, the people. Those lining the sides of the road, faces familiar and unfamiliar, all of the people in Suna that caused him such grief. Make them suffer. Sand whirled threateningly around his feet, with no way for Gaara to control it. The boy's legs were quaking, his small hands raking wildly at his locks of crimson hair. Madness. The struggle was now at its peak, and Gaara felt himself slipping, letting the thing within him gain more control. And its influence was also somewhat appeasing, the strength and power, it was so overwhelming to feel it course through his small body. No. Gaara stumbled to his knees again, sobbing, and giving in. It's all right. The demon purred, after they're all dead, you'll still have me, and you'll never have to be alone. I don't want to be alone. Gaara looked up, an unexplainable grin on his face. The tailed beast's power was euphoric. He felt a feral growl of triumph escape his throat, a laugh that Gaara was sure was not his. Suddenly, justification was abundant. It was refreshing. It was all right to kill others simply because they deserved it. His life mattered more than anyone else's. They would feel all of the pain and misery that they had inflicted upon him. Gaara's grin grew wider, and he gave his full attention to the beast inside of him. Kill. Gaara's fussing had attracted a lot of attention. A few people looked over at him with concern. That concern was reserved mainly for themselves. Kill. The red-haired boy stood up, his spindly legs steady beneath him. His sand circled around him, awaiting his command. Then there were two faces, faces he knew very well. They held some sort of value to him, value that the voice had tried to get him to ignore. Wait, I know them. Gaara hesitated, desperately trying to recall the two children he saw standing at the far end of the road, staring at him with alarm. They don't matter. Kill them. No, I know them. A girl with light blonde hair watched him worriedly, her brother standing beside her. Gaara watched as his name soundlessly crossed her lips in confusion. Tamari. Kankuro. Kill them now. Gaara understood why he faltered at the sight of them. My brother and my sister. They don't care about you. Gaara felt a twinge of electric pain course through him. Maybe that's so, but I care. I won't hurt them. Ever. Gaara felt the Shukaku rattle his insides in fury, and radiate a huge burst of chakra, startling many of the nearby shinobi. Do as I say. Demonic strength consumed his body, and a whirlwind of sand then encircled him. The young boy felt his teeth gnash in immense effort as he endeavored to restrain the power and bloodlust rising within. He then realized that this power would not be easily stopped. I won't let you hurt them, not anymore. Gaara panicked as the tailed beast howled viciously inside of his head, willing his feet to move. He felt himself slowly approaching his fellow villagers, hands raised, sand flying at them, knocking them away. Tamari and Kankuro stood motionless, horrified. He heard the cries for any sand nin to stop him, by any means. Gaara watched in fear as kunai and shuriken flew towards him, glinting menacingly in the daylight. Shukaku laughed. A barrier of sand repelled every weapon, while the rest of the sand was busy at work crushing any other shinobi. He was hurting them, again. Is this why they hated him? Because of this power. The power he couldn't control. I don't want them to hate me. Gaara gazed sadly at his older siblings as the cowered helplessly on the sidelines. His heart wrenched, and for a moment, he felt his will suddenly sever his connection with the Shukaku. The sand dropped to the ground and time slowed down. I will find a way to control it, and then they won't have to be afraid. Then I won't have to be alone ever again. His mind was set and fully focused. Then I will leave, and I will come back, when I'm safe for them. Gaara found the strength he needed, and in a whirlwind of sand he departed from Suna. A set of brilliant, blue eyes stared downcast at the ground. It was a warm, sunny day, and a 6-year-old with messy blonde hair sat quietly on a swing outside the ninja academy. The cool breeze swept a few stray leaves past the boy's lonely face. If loneliness was an illness, then Naruto would have been confined to a hospital for it. His home was in Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves, even if it was painful to admit. He had been shunned and ostracized for the length of his young life by his fellow leaf villagers. Unknown to Naruto, the reason for his unhealthy solitude was that he was the container of a monstrous demon that had attacked Konoha the night he had been born. As a result, contemptuous shinobi and mistrusting citizens kept their distance from the otherwise harmless child. He had no concept of what he could have done to bring such cruelty unto himself. I've been so nice to everyone, but why do they always ignore me? What did I do? Naruto sat in silence, pondering the reason for his misery. Hey! The blue-eyed boy looked up, and noticed 2 girls his age looking at him strangely from a bench. Hey! The girl with the light blonde hair called to him again, what are you doing over here all by yourself? A girl with pink hair stood shyly next to her, trying to hide her head from view. Naruto felt an enormous smile explode onto his face. Wow! They're actually talking to me. He leapt from his spot on the swing and went over to them. The blonde girl had her hands on her hips and appeared far more confident than her friend. Well, she asked again, why are you all alone? Because no one ever wants me around. Naruto answered honestly. It was awkward, he had never fully participated in a conversation before, and talking to the girls felt refreshing. Why is that? The pink-haired girl stepped out from behind her friend. I don't know. They always treat me that way, I guess. The blonde girl shook her head in disapproval. Well, that's just silly. You can play with us if you like to. What's your name? Uzumaki Naruto. Okay. Naruto. I'm Ino. My dad owns the Yamanaka flower shop. Ino then turned to her friend, and this is Sakura. Don't worry if she's acting funny, she's trying to hide her big forehead. Ino. She squealed. Don't talk about it. What? It's not really such a big deal. Naruto had a better look at the girl called Sakura. She had green eyes and pale pink hair, though he did not see much of a problem with her slightly spacious forehead. There's nothing wrong with your forehead, Sakura, it's kinda nice. Naruto's words seemed to shock the self-conscious girl. You really think so? Ino nodded. Yeah, he's right. When you don't hide it, it makes you look cute. Sakura smiled, glad her forehead was being admired rather than spotlighted for its size. So you'll really let me play with you? Naruto was elated at the nice girl's offer. Sure, come on, Ino answered, leading them along down the path. We can go play on the slide, I'll race you there. Ino ran ahead, and Sakura and Naruto laughed as they followed her. The next morning, Naruto was as happy as the proverbial clam. Never in his life had he ever played with other children, and it was something that he was looking forward to with his new friends Ino and Sakura. He recapped in his mind how wonderful that day had been. We played and played until the sun started to go down, and they even invited me to come back and play today. This is great. In fact, Naruto was in such a pleasant mood, he had even brought along 2 extra cups of miso ramen for his new buddies. He sat on the swing anxiously. He had checked his clock before he had left home, it was nearly 10 o'clock. A goofy, Excited grin was plastered on his face when he saw two small figures approaching from the other side of the academy. Hey Ino. Hi Sakura. He called out to them as they neared. The two girls paused and looked at him for a moment. The hazy, morning light blurred the expressions on their faces. Still too excited to sit and wait for them to approach, Naruto sprang up and trotted over to them. Hi guys. I brought something for ya. It's my favorite. Naruto quieted his rambling when he noticed the odd looks on the girls' faces. Hey, are you okay? He asked, not understanding their silence. Ino gave him a fierce glare, her mouth pursed in a tough line. I went home yesterday and told my dad about you, Naruto. Ino snapped at him, and do you know what happened? Naruto shook his head, worried over the answer. He yelled at me. It was horrible, and he says that I'm never supposed to go near you again, so there. The boy winced. Why was this happening? I'm sorry Naruto, Sakura apologized, but my mommy and daddy don't want me talking to you either. I'm really sorry. Naruto's head was spinning from the magnitude of rejection. Sakura and Ino, they had so much fun the day before. Why were his new friends doing this to him? He watched as the girls turned to leave and panic set in. Wait, Naruto cried, I don't understand. We're friends and I promise I'll be nice. I won't do anything wrong. Don't go. Ino sniffed and turned her back on him. Come on Sakura, let's go. Please don't leave me all alone again. Naruto sniffled helplessly. Sakura gave him a pained look. I'm sorry, she whispered, before taking off after Ino, leaving Naruto behind. They left me. Both cups of ramen slipped from his hands and fell to the ground, spilling their contents on the dusty path. A single tear slid down his whiskered cheek, and he swiped it away with the back of his hand. Naruto turned and ran in the opposite direction from where Sakura and Ino had come from. He ran back into town alone as he had done many times before. Why did they go? I thought that they liked me. Naruto stumbled down the deserted street, under the beaming light of the morning sun. His head was hung in great dismay. The dull, resonating ache of loneliness bit at his insides again. It hurt when he realized that he could barely make friends, let alone keep them. He sniffled quietly to himself as he trudged along his usual path, and then stopped, noticing two people ahead of him. Naruto gave them a brief, but observant glance. They wore green jackets and fishnet shirts, and had forehead protectors with the hidden leaf symbol on them. They were ninja, Chunin, he had heard was their rank, and they looked much older and more experienced than the genin he had seen outside of the academy. They smirked at the small boy. Looks like the beast still walks these streets freely. One of them muttered. The other stared at Naruto soundlessly, a look of utter repugnance in his eyes. The blonde-haired boy looked at the two shinobi again for a moment, and then continued, too broken-hearted to listen to any derogatory comments they may have saved for him. Angered by his innocent gesture, the silent shinobi shot forward and grabbed hold of Naruto's arm, and squeezed threateningly. Ow, hey, let go of me, the boy yelled, not expecting an attack from a member of his own village. Did you let go, demon? The enraged ninja hissed. Did you let my sister live? She's dead now, and you're still alive. Naruto had no idea of what the infuriated ninja was speaking about. The troubled Chunin grunted in surprise when his companion halted him with an outstretched arm. The other shinobi did not want to linger. Enough Takeshi, you know the law. Besides we have a mission. No, his partner hissed again, hoping to get some kind of retribution, that hurting the boy may hurt the Kyuubi. Naruto felt tears sting his eyes. Why did people hate him so much? He held his ground, knowing he could not outrun them, and prepared himself for a flogging that never came. Stop it. The voice was young, like his, but obviously aware that what was happening was wrong. Takeshi and his partner observed the young boy indifferently. Oh, it's just that little Uchiha kid, you know, Itachi's brother. The distraction snapped Naruto's accoster out of his rage. Don't you have a mission? You said. You should go. He didn't do anything to you. The boy with the onyx eyes spoke again. Naruto only stared at him. The two Chunin begrudgingly admitted that the child had a point. Without a word of apology, they left, promptly forgetting about Naruto. The young Uchiha approached him. Are you okay? Naruto nodded with an impressive poker face, knowing that deep down his heart was still in tatters. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. Uzumaki Naruto. The sound of pain in the blonde's voice unnerved Sasuke. What had they done to the boy who called himself Naruto? He had seen him around the village from time to time, but Sasuke hardly knew a thing about him. I recognize those two, Sasuke added, they aren't friendly. You should stay away from them. Naruto could not bring himself to answer. He was so rattled with pain from what Ino and Sakura, and then the Chunin had done. Trying to make friends with Sasuke seemed ridiculous. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who wore an expectant expression. Thanks, he said quietly. Too embarrassed to let the other boys see him upset, Naruto fled, returning to his apartment where he could be alone cry. It was noon. Naruto had not wasted much of the day before he had gotten a grip. He had taken a number of his few but valuable possessions, which included lots of instant ramen, and packed them in a bag. He had gotten the idea to sneak away. Most of the time when people don't say mean things to me, they ignore me. If I am so good at not get noticed, I can probably get out of here and find a better place. This was it, he decided. He could take a hint. Maybe there was another place he could be treated humanely. Maybe he would build a thicker skin out there in the world. Maybe he would find a way to get people to respect him. If I can find a place where they won't recognize me, then, someone may like me. His hopes were not very high, of course, but he was willing to take a chance. Additionally, he was unsure of where he could go after escaping Konoha. His plan was to take the road to a new town and cross his fingers. Naruto left his apartment and slinked through the lower district, effectively packed up for a journey, and wore a determined expression on his face. He stuck to the dark alleyways, devoid of the bustling foot traffic out on the main road. It was not worth it to endure the pain any longer if there was a chance he may discover acceptance elsewhere. At that thought of finding a new home, he recalled Sasuke. He had been nice and helped him without being asked. But Naruto kept in mind that Ino and Sakura had been nice earlier, and they had turned on him. He shook the idea from his head. What was left in Konoha that he could possibly stay for? No. This time I can do it. People won't hate me anymore. It was a relief when he passed through the wooded area near the village gates. There were few people here and he did not have to put much effort into sneaking. It was quiet and peaceful, and it helped give him the strength to press on and seek happiness. Yellow blossomed bushes lined the gate. The flowers smelled nice and he slowed down a bit to admire them. A small voice nearly made him jump out of his skin. Naruto. The blonde boy turned around and faced the voice's owner. It was a girl. She had black hair and silvery white eyes. He recognized her in a moment. Oh, Hinata. Hi. Naruto had first met the shy girl near the ninja academy. While he sat gloomily on his swing, he noticed a girl sitting at the base of the tree in total silence. He had realized she was quiet and shy, but had grown accustomed to her presence as she would often sit with him near his swing almost every day. Hinata observed him quietly. Naruto, are you alright? You seem upset. Her stuttering was still understandable, even with her soft voice. He looked at her sadly. No, Hinata. I'm fine. Are you sure? Yeah. Don't worry about me, I'm okay. Hinata noticed the backpack he had with him, and she quickly put two and two together. Are you going somewhere? Yeah. By yourself? Yeah. She looked distressed. Where are you going? I don't really know. They were both quiet for a moment. I see. Hinata spoke quietly. Naruto still felt the dull ache in his chest. The loneliness had become a cage that he so badly wanted to escape. Well, I just hope you'll come back soon then. She informed him. The blonde boy was confused. Why would ya? say that Hinata. A blush crept up over her cheeks. Well, USC. She found it very difficult to articulate. I know that I'll miss you every day by our tea tree, until you come back. The hope that had been dwindling like a flickering ember inside of Naruto quickly flared up. Hinata will miss me. She wants me to come back. So then, maybe I will. Naruto grinned at her reassuringly. Sure thing, Hinata. I'll be back soon, and then we can sit under our tree all the time. Hinata smiled in response. Really? That would be wonderful. He was suddenly invigorated and ready to explore, and he rushed out of Konoha's gates, calling over his shoulder, I'll see you soon, Hinata-chan. I promise. It was something that she nearly died with joy hearing. Not only had he given her the honorary suffix, but he had promised to see her soon. And Uzumaki Naruto never breaks a promise. Low-hanging clouds rolled slowly overhead, blocking all sunlight. Haku hummed to himself pleasantly as Hiroshi narrated yet another one of his many stories, tugging his cart along the road with Haku on board. When I was young, I had the chance to meet a skilled ninja who at the time, was preoccupied with a mission. A mission? Hiroshi sighed softly. It was difficult to explain everything to the farm boy who had no real knowledge of the outside world. In particular, Haku had no concept yet of what a ninja was, or even his ties to being a descendant of such a warrior. Yes, Haku. Ninja partake in tasks and jobs of varying difficulty, or so I've been told. Hiroshi went on, well anyway, the one I ran into was quite helpful. If it wasn't for him, the thugs attacking me, who coincidentally he was after, would have. His mission was to look for people, Hiroshi-san. How do I put this to an innocent little kid? Hiroshi wondered, pursing his lips. Sort of. He rather beat them all bloody and saved me in the process. I haven't seen many shinobi in action since that day. It was an impressive sight. The man smiled fondly to himself. He had grown a certain respect for ninja with intentions of doing good in the world. Haku looked up to his companion with a quizzical look on his face. Hiroshi-san, did you ever want to become a ninja? He asked, his eyes shining a color identical to the sky above. Hiroshi chuckled in response, I suppose I did when I was younger, but unfortunately the opportunity never came to me. These days I'm more concerned with making a living than running around tossing shuriken at enemies. But who knows? Maybe you will succeed where I have failed. Haku perked up. From what he had been told, the life of a shinobi was an adventure. That would be something far better than becoming a merchant or a farmer. You mean maybe I can train to be a ninja, Hiroshi-san? Well, don't get your hopes up too high, little one. It's hard enough to get an education these days, let alone one as a shinobi, Hiroshi answered, but it is a possibility. You're still very young, Haku. There's a chance you'll be discovered. Haku gazed out into the depths of the surrounding forest, deep in thought. I do want to become a ninja, one who is strong and can protect others. He muttered to himself, just loud enough for Hiroshi to catch his proclamation. He found Haku was not a typical child. He was uncannily thoughtful for a boy his age and had a complex for improving himself. In fact, just a few days earlier Hiroshi had been surprised at how quickly he picked up on reading and simple math skills. Were his parents really farmers as Haku had said? It was odd. An astute farm boy. Well, maybe not that odd. Every now and again a gifted person was born. Haku was a child, still absorbing information and developing skills. It was a point in his life where his future abilities would be determined by his environment and experiences. Hiroshi was quiet for a moment and thought to himself. Hopefully, the child had not had many negative experiences besides being an orphan. He wanted to change that, to give the boy a chance. And yet already the child had a dream. Sadly, it was one that Hiroshi was quite sure that he would be unable to help Haku with. Maybe I can find him a good teacher. One that walks down the righteous path. Hiroshi-san. Thank you for letting me stay with you, Hiroshi-san. Haku gave the man a genuine smile. The cart jerked upward as it went over a rock on the dirt path. Haku quickly grabbed hold of a parcel that nearly fell from the sudden movement. Hiroshi chuckled. I should be thanking you really, Haku-chan. You've been excellent company. Haku was quiet, but still wore the blithe expression on his face while he held onto a porcelain pot. It had been several days of traveling northward and a brief ferry crossing before they left the snowy weather of the water country behind. Both Hiroshi and his ward easily adjusted to the warmer climate. Their arrival in the town called Kuro was a relief, and a place where Hiroshi intended to see if he could spot any welcoming shinobi who may be in the trading town. He was also aware their chances were slim. Hiroshi acknowledged that it was missing nin and outlaws who preferred the quiet towns devoid of village ninja. One such place was Kuro, and Hiroshi feared that Haku may get mixed up with the wrong type of people here. The odds of actually running into a good teacher for Haku were very low just about anywhere they went. Being morally sound, he wasn't about to hand the boy over to some bloodthirsty assassin who had no more intention than to turn Haku into one himself. Hiroshi deliberated silently as he trudged into the city, with Haku swinging his legs off the edge of the cart. Maybe I'm overthinking this, he may not be at all up for a shinobi lifestyle even if he got lucky. Haku was a frail, rather, feminine-looking child. He did not outright appear to be ninja material. However, despite Hiroshi's hesitation, it was apparent that something inside of Haku was meant for that path. The boy's spirit was also heartwarming. Hiroshi-san, are we in Kuro now? The boy observed the bustling street he and his companion were traveling down, with many different people going off in every direction. Yes, Haku-chan, we're here. And we're going to sell these things you have here. Haku gestured to the mound of items he had been guarding during their journey. I'm going to sell them, Hiroshi gently corrected. It'd be a bit tedious for you to try to sell goods to such a tough crowd, little one. I think you should just watch for now. All right. He saw no reason to argue. Haku had been raised on a farm and was aware he would be useful to Hiroshi up until a certain point. The cart pulled to a stop on the side of the road, and Haku leaned back with a long sigh. It had been quite a trip, and it was the farthest from home he had ever been. Home. Memories flooded back to him, and he breathed out again, wondering what he would be doing at that moment if his parents were still alive. And how he had found his special power, and Hiroshi, and the man with the bandaged face. That man was like me, Haku thought to himself. Alone. It was a weak comparison, but Haku could not shake the odd feeling that he would definitely see the stranger again. And even more to his surprise, he realized, was that he wanted to find him. He made sure not to say anything about it to his heavy friend. The boy frowned to himself while Hiroshi was busy setting up his stand. Haku had been frightened of that man, and the more he thought about it, the more he wanted to see him. That man, he was strong. I could feel it. I want to be strong, and maybe if I had went with him. Haku suddenly felt a wave of guilt come over him. How could he be so ungrateful? Hiroshi, though lacking any presence of intimidation, was certainly a wise choice on his part. He had offered Haku necessities and a chance at life. He had been given no more than an icy glance from the man in the water country. Power was all that he would have expected from such a person. And he didn't need power. Did he? The overcast day kept many people from venturing outdoors, although a few did stop by to do business. Haku watched with mild interest as Hiroshi interacted with his customers. He made note of how polite some were, and those who weren't. Also, he noticed things they were looking for and what kinds of people stopped by. After a while, his observation got boring. He could be home chasing the chickens around his yard right now, a delightful activity. Haku also made note that he would not be going home. Not this time. With a yawn, Haku settled down and curled into a ball on the cart. Quickly sleep took him, for he had been worn out with his long journey and everything he had taken in that day. Hiroshi bade farewell to his last customer and then turned to Haku. He chuckled to himself upon seeing him asleep. He took a spare blanket he had in supply and draped it over the slumbering child. A young woman stopped by his cart and smiled at Hiroshi. She found Haku cute. My, what an adorable little girl you have there. The comment was made with the best intentions. Thank you. Though he's actually a boy. Oh. The woman smiled at Hiroshi uncertainly before walking away, a little embarrassed by her mistake. He merely sighed. That was the fourth time that day he had received that comment. He glanced over to Haku, wondering why that was. He doesn't resemble a girl that much, his hair is still pretty short. Hiroshi paused and noted the child's face. His features were very delicate, those big dark lashes though, and the China doll face, makes him look like he has some noble blood. Hiroshi looked out onto the emptying street, and then towards a vendor a few feet away. He caught the tempting aroma of confections as it drifted on the breeze. Oh, that's Chichi Dango over there. His sweet tooth beckoned. Hiroshi momentarily observed Haku. I'll be back in a minute, he said quietly, before venturing over to the dumpling stand. It was dark. Haku rolled over and bumped his head against the porcelain pot. Ow. He sat up and rubbed his forehead as his eyes blinked open. Why was it so quiet? Haku looked around, and saw no more than an empty street and a darkening sky. He felt his blood run cold. Where was Hiroshi? Hiroshi-san, he called softly. There was no answer, and Haku quickly stood up, looking around frantically. He saw nothing familiar. It was getting cold and he did not understand why Hiroshi was not with him. Oh no. Did a bad ninja get to him? Is he hurt? Haku wandered around the street in a small circle, his hands wringing together nervously. The feeling of being alone again was so overwhelming that he had difficulty thinking straight. I've got to find him. Where could he have gone? Hiroshi-san. He spoke louder, but received no response. Haku paused in his circling and gasped. What if he was injured? He recalled the agonizing end his parents had met and the sudden, partly rational fear for Hiroshi's life overtook him. Hiroshi-san. Haku was calling out into the emptiness of the main avenue, darting about on swift legs. His head was pounding and his thoughts became a tangled mess. Where is he? Where is he? Why did he leave me alone? Hiroshi-san. Haku's panic intensified and he scurried under the cover of trees, retracing their route along the forest path. The woods were quiet and the grass was damp beneath his feet. I'm alone. I'm alone. No. Please no. Haku pleaded. Hiroshi-san, are you there? He raced farther into the line of cedar trees, tripping over his own feet. After a minute of his desultory search he stumbled down to the wet earth and wailed. Now I'm alone. He must have found out about my power and left me. He pulled his knees up to his chest and sobbed. His logical functions shut down and yielded to grief once again. He had no idea of whether Hiroshi had left him or if he had become another victim of violence. Haku's small frame rattled as he cried. He had not been able to bring himself to do it any sooner. He cried for his parents, for the dog and for himself. Why did things always turn out this way? He heard a foreign noise in the background, despite his tears. He couldn't place it, but it was a constant, soft sound that helped him focus. Haku sniffed and wiped his damp cheeks with the back of his hand. Huh. He gazed ahead and then noticed a glimmer a short distance away. A river ran parallel to the town, flowing gently. The sight of water was curiously soothing to Haku. He stood up, still drying off his cheeks on his scruffy shirt, and took small steps toward the body of water. He stopped at the water's edge and frowned down at the dark water. He recalled how his ability to manipulate water and ice had gotten him into a lot of trouble. It flowed undisturbed, as if it were mocking him, mocking his pain. I lost Mama and Papa, all because of. Haku sniffled, struggling with the weight of the terrible memory. Despite the trauma he had gone through, Haku liked the power he had. It felt just as normal as taking a breath of air or knowing how to walk. He never would have used his ability to harm anyone, if his father had only accepted him as he was. For a moment he stood staring accusingly at the water. He was upset his parents were gone and that Hiroshi had disappeared. Was it a sign? Was he really meant to be alone? I am not a bad person, Haku affirmed, and my power isn't bad either. He raised his hand and watched in reserved delight as the water rose up at his command. It made him feel better. Haku waved his hand forcefully to the left, making the thread of water fly up above the surface. The ribbon of shimmering liquid coiled gracefully as he directed it, easing his heartache. I like my power and I will use it to become a strong ninja. Smiling at the thought of one day becoming a shinobi, Haku continued with his activity, until he was interrupted. Whoa! The shout from behind him startled Haku so badly that the serpent of water that had once been airborne, splashed quickly back down into the river. Haku turned around and faced the newcomer. Wow! That was awesome! How did you do that? The boy was about his height and was incredibly loud. Haku took a moment to regain his composure before answering. I don't really know. I just can. The other boy was grinning. Haku assumed he had no idea that the power he possessed bothered most people. That was so cool. Can you do it again? Sure. Haku indulged the newcomer by showing off a bit more, raising more of the water into the air. He smiled to himself proudly as he noticed the other boy's awe. That's really something. Haku observed the boy. He was a mess. There was no other way to describe him. His blonde hair was tousled and full of leaves. Dirt was smudged on his face and, just about everywhere else on him. His clothes were even more tattered than Haku's. It couldn't have been more obvious that he had been out in the wilderness for quite some time. Haku looked at the boy curiously. He was unsure of how to act since he had hardly ever had contact with other children before. The blonde boy flounced up to Haku, apparently thirsting to socialize. Hey, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Who are you? Haku's ears were hurting. Why was he so loud? He answered in a quiet voice, I'm Haku. Naruto grabbed his hand and shook it. It's great to meet you, Haku. You're the first person I've seen outside of Konoha. Haku picked up on Naruto's enthusiasm and found himself smiling as well. Konoha. Naruto looked dumbfounded. Don't tell me you haven't heard of the Hidden Leaf Village. I'm sorry. I haven't. The blonde boy folded his arms across his chest and huffed, well geez. It's only the best ninja village around. I'm out here because. Did you say ninja village? Haku could not believe his luck. Not only had he met a friendly youth like himself, but Naruto was actually from a village of shinobi. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I'll be going back there soon to see Hinata-chan, but I've been away for a couple of days so I can train myself. Maybe you can come too. Haku wasn't sure if he was dreaming or not, considering this stroke of good fortune. However, his head was still spinning due to the disappearance of Hiroshi, and his fear of losing his only friend irked him to no end. Naruto took a deep breath and then dropped his backpack to the ground with a thud. He landed on his butt next to it and stretched his arms. Man, I went pretty far. I'm starved. Naruto continued to puzzle Haku as he retrieved a cup of what appeared to be noodles from his bag. Haku sat down as well, still surprised Naruto had actually liked his ability rather than feared it. Want some? Naruto was preparing the cup ramen, and he held out an extra for Haku. Haku hesitated. Naruto had poured a thermos of lukewarm water into his meal and then tore into it. The dark-haired boy watched Naruto slurp his food rapidly, as if he was rushing just to move on to a second helping. Haku thought it disgusting to eat that way. He lost his appetite. No thank you, Naruto. The blonde boy shrugged and then stashed the extra cup back in his bag. He continued his messy meal contentedly. Haku sighed inwardly. This was turning out to be a weird day. He had to say something. Now that he was aware that Naruto had actually come from a ninja village, it may be his only chance for the training he wanted. Naruto. MFF. What's it like in your village? Haku went straight to the point. Can I train to become a ninja there? Naruto sighed and put down his empty cup. His face became solemn upon recalling Konoha. In his heart he knew it was a great place, just not particularly for him, but he promised himself he would find a way to change that. He tilted his chin up in the air in thought, well. Haku looked at him with great anticipation. Training to become a ninja is hard no matter who you are. Do you think you have what it takes? Naruto tried to unnerve Haku, but he only succeeded in confusing him more. Do I have what it takes? Yeah, you know, jutsu, weapons, skills, that kind of stuff. Naruto himself understood very little of what he was talking about. Haku shook his head. What was a jutsu? He had lived on a farm for heaven's sake. Naruto took a closer look at Haku. He's kinda scrawny and, I don't know. Well, you can do that cool thing with the water, so that's a start. Naruto tried to form a list of assets. Can you fight? I can with water. Naruto shook his head. No Haku, I mean like punching and stuff. I heard people at the academy call it something, but I don't remember what exactly. Anyway, can you? No, I don't know how. Haku felt embarrassed. He hadn't taken into account that he would have to be able to fight in more ways than one. He felt disheartened by the idea. By some miracle, Naruto came up with another idea. Well, you can learn to fight and stuff later. But are you good at anything else? Like medicine, how fast are you? If Haku could remember correctly, he could be impressively fast when he wanted to be. Yet he was not certain if his speed could compare to a ninja's. He decided to give it a shot anyway. I'm fast. Good. Let's see. Naruto jumped to his feet, his energy practically radiating off of him. It made Haku feel tired just by looking at him. Haku stood up as well. I'm fast, I can prove it. I have skill. It was the first time in Haku's young life he had heard 3 specific words used in the same sentence. Tag. You're it. In a flash of yellow, Naruto was gone. Haku stood where he was, completely perplexed. I'm afraid I don't understand, Naruto. Naruto sighed in exasperation and leapt down from his hiding place among the treetops. You're it, so you gotta run after me and try to catch me. That way I can see how fast you are. Haku was still bewildered that the blonde boy jumped in and out of trees like it was nothing, which could explain all of the foliage he was covered in. He shook the thought out of his head and nodded. All right, I don't think I can get up into the trees though. I suppose I'll have to find a way to keep him on the ground. Naruto laughed gleefully as he disappeared into the treetops again, and Haku quickly pursued him while on the ground. Why don't you just come up here, Haku? You're pretty fast. Naruto called down to him, leaping from tree branch to tree branch. Haku frowned up at him. I can't jump that high. Then you'll never catch me. Naruto certainly wasn't concerned with stealth. His laughter echoed through the entire forest and made it easy for Haku to follow him. It was frustrating for the dark-eyed boy to stay grounded. Luckily Haku had something that Naruto had not counted on, brain power. He was clever enough to fix his problem. Naruto makes it seem that I can only catch him if I chase him around. But maybe if I too slow. Naruto laughed while jumping over Haku's head. He raced like a yellow blur back towards the river. Haku was not willing to be outdone. He nearly matched Naruto's speed and let him lead the way through the forest while he waited for the blonde boy to play into his still-forming trap. Come on Haku. I thought you said you wanted to train as a ninja. Naruto taunted playfully as he bounced around the treetops with ease. Haku remained quiet in his pursuit, waiting for the right moment to strike. Suddenly Naruto made the mistake of coming too close to the water's edge. Now, Haku waved his hand in a diagonal motion he had practiced before, letting a thin jet of muddy water land a direct hit on Naruto's face. His accuracy was alarming and his timing was flawless. Wah! The blonde boy slipped from the tree branch, blindsided by the attack. Since his calculations had served him well, Haku quickly pounced on Naruto with a triumphant smile as he collided with the ground. I got you. Naruto was still hollering in laughter, aware that Haku had used wit rather than speed to catch him, but he was impressed all the same. He spoke between pants. You're not as fast as me. Not yet. Haku admitted it with a smile since he had still proved himself. I didn't expect a trap. Naruto dried his face on his sleeve once he had caught his breath. Haku felt accomplished. If only Hiroshi had seen how well he had done. Hiroshi. Haku leapt to his feet, remembering his friend and how he had not completed his search. Oh, I need to find Hiroshi-san. It's getting dark. Naruto looked up towards the red and pink sky and then to Haku, who's Hiroshi? My friend. I fell asleep a little while ago and when I woke up I couldn't find him. Haku explained. He didn't feel as panicked as he had before, but he was still worried enough to keep looking. Naruto slipped his backpack on and also stood. I'll help you find him. Naruto volunteered. His main reason to help was that Haku was an enjoyable playmate, and he did not look forward to being left alone again. Thank you. Haku was glad Naruto had decided to come along. It took a moment for Haku to get used to his new companion as they ventured back towards the town. He's like me, more than Hiroshi or the man with the sword. Naruto wants to be a ninja. Haku was startled when Naruto spoke up in a normal tone of voice. So, does this make us friends? Haku smiled. It would be an honor to be your friend, Uzumaki Naruto. By the time they had returned, street lamps were already lit, and the sun sank slowly beneath the horizon. At that point, Haku was certain of one thing about Naruto. He liked to talk. A lot. He was uncertain why Naruto was so chatty, however it was pleasant to have someone his height to speak to. The people in my village don't like me much, Naruto went on about Konoha, I don't know why. So I'm going to become a powerful ninja so they'll stop hating me and start respecting me. Haku could understand that feeling. Why do you want to become a ninja, Haku? He looked to Naruto as they walked down the side of the street. He knew the answer to that. I need to become stronger to protect the people who are precious to me. I haven't been able to do that. Haku recalled how he had failed his parents, and if I train as a ninja I can find a way to save people. Naruto nodded. Yup, that's a good reason. I like that reason, Haku. It was a deep, bellowing shout that made both boys turn around. A large man was jogging up the road and he appeared greatly distraught. Haku's face lit up as he saw that his companion had not abandoned him after all. Hiroshi-san. Haku darted over to his fat friend and hugged him in great relief. Hiroshi frowned at the farm boy. Sweet lord, Haku. I've been looking all over for you. I don't want you running off like that again, you hear me? This place isn't safe. Haku bowed his head in apology. I'm sorry Hiroshi-san, it's just that when I woke up you were gone and I thought you had left, so I went to look for you. He rambled. I was worried. Naruto watched the exchange, waiting for a chance to introduce himself. You should have waited for me, Haku-chan. I was only getting some dango. Haku had never heard of such a thing before. Dango. Try it. Hiroshi reached into a paper bag and handed him a skewer of pink and green dumplings, and then turned to Naruto. So, who's your friend here? I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Hiroshi chuckled at the spirited boy. Hello Naruto. I am Hiroshi and I take it you've already become acquainted with Haku. Haku bit into one of the dumplings and he found that he liked its light sweetness. He took one of the dumplings for himself and passed the skewer on to Naruto. He also had never tried dango before, but devoured the remaining treats easily. Hiroshi chuckled. I guess I'll just have to buy some more. Why don't you boys just wait by the cart? Naruto casually tossed the stick aside, and hoped that Hiroshi would still be willing to share the upcoming dessert. Haku returned to his companion's cart with Naruto beside him, and they sat down while Hiroshi returned to the vendor. Wow, I guess it wasn't really that hard to find your friend after all, huh Haku? Naruto observed. Haku forced a smile. It turned out to be just that. He had indeed overreacted. Though Haku believed Naruto wouldn't understand the feeling of panic that came over him earlier. Naruto shook some of the leaves out of his golden hair. I sure am dirty. I've been working really hard to get stronger since I left home. I can't wait to go back, then I can just sit with Hinata-chan by our tree. And I can come with you. Haku confirmed. Yup. Then you can meet Hinata-chan. She's really nice. Haku laid back inside. I'd like that. Have you two settled down? Hiroshi returned with 2 skewers of dango and Naruto looked at them expectantly. I suppose Naruto will be staying with us for a while. Naruto shook his head. Nah, not for too long. I'm gonna go back to Konoha for ninja training and Haku's coming with me. Hiroshi was stunned. Konoha. What are you doing away from Hidden Leaf? Trying to get stronger, but I'm going back soon. You're a bit too young to be wandering by yourself if you ask me. Naruto. Hiroshi handed him the dango that he had been staring at. Are you all by yourself? Yeah. He chomped gratefully on the sweets. How had no one come looking for this child yet? He was too young to be out on his own. Funnily enough, the good shinobi who could help Haku with his ninja training happened to be a 6-year-old. It was something Hiroshi was not expecting. So Haku-chan, would you like to go to Hidden Leaf to train as a ninja? Hiroshi asked. Haku looked excited at the idea. Yes, I want to go with Naruto. Hiroshi nodded to him. It was settled then. He had not anticipated it to be so simple. Haku noticed an odd sight while he was watching the sun set. A small dark cloud appeared in the distance, silhouetted against the rosy sky. It seemed to be moving. He looked at it curiously for a moment, watching it as it came near. After a quiet moment, Hiroshi and Naruto noticed it as well. What the heck is that? Naruto asked with one last mouthful of sticky dango. No one could answer. What once appeared to be a cloud, turned into a mass of furiously whirling sand, that was approaching at an unsafe speed. It nearly resembled a funnel cloud, but was far too small to be a tornado. That was when Haku decided he really was having a weird day. The 3 of them looked on in shock as the sandstorm halted several yards away from them, kicking up dust and sand as it slowed to a stop. Hiroshi's dango slid off of the skewer and plopped down to the ground. I guess today is not my day for snacks. What is going on? Naruto and Haku stared with wide eyes as the sand thinned and then ceased its motion, revealing a person amidst the center of the swirling wind. That's really cool, Naruto commented, feeling the same awe as he had felt meeting Haku. The sand cleared, and what remained was a small boy with a shock of red hair. His eyes were bloodshot and he was trembling uncontrollably, suffering from extreme exhaustion. Haku took a few steps forward and then stopped. He could feel the immense power the boy had, just as he had felt it with the man with the bandaged face. The red-haired boy stared at them silently for a moment, shaking. Hiroshi looked at him, unsure of what he could do. Hey, are you alright? Naruto promptly asked. Haku watched with bated breath. The power that he felt was flickering. The boy was going to cave. The boy's voice was weak and pained. Help me. The 3 watched as he collapsed to the ground, landing with a soft thud. While Haku and Hiroshi stood in stunned silence, Naruto could not help himself. Whoa. Hazy steam drifted upwards from the hot springs. It was a relaxing afternoon until a woman with dark hair turned to her friend after hearing a peculiar noise from outside. You didn't hear that? It sounded like someone talking or giggling. Am I going crazy? Her friend nodded. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard something to that effect. Both girls peeked over the fence, but their eyes met nothing but the surrounding forest. A loon called out an eerie cry as they suspiciously scanned the area. The dark-haired woman shook her head and settled back into the water. Maybe we're just imagining things. Her friend nodded again and did the same. Little did they know that they were in fact the subject of one ninja's undivided attention. Stooped in the high branches of a sycamore tree was none other the legendary sage Jiraiya, renowned author of the Ika Ika Paradise series. He scribbled notes down furiously while watching the girls bathe. It was, after all, very important research. Heh, this is probably the best yet. He muttered excitedly to himself. He had recently returned to the Fire Country and dropped by the Leaf Village. However, his research there had been nothing short of a disaster when a certain green spandex-clad Junin caught him near a women's changing room, and accused him of disrupting the girls' springtime of youth. Faye. Weirdo. Jiraiya frowned as he recalled. What did he know anyway? Why? Jiraiya was quite certain he was overflowing with youthfulness, and was by no means disturbing anyone's springtime. The small town called Kuro had given him the perfect opportunity to seek new inspiration for his story. Boy, did he ever get it. In the midst of his work, he abruptly felt a fierce wind catch him from behind. Reluctantly, Jiraiya tore his skillful eyes away from the girls and looked behind him. Approaching at an alarming speed was what appeared to be a large whirlwind of sand and debris. The wind was heading straight his way. What the? He had no time to evade it, and was hurled from his hiding place with tremendous force and sent hurtling through the air until he crash-landed in the middle of the hot springs on his head. Tree branches and stones rained down beside him. Ow! As if the encounter had never happened, the gale continued on, leaving Jiraiya bruised and soaked with his notes soggy and unreadable. Damn gusts gotta screw up my brilliant notes and hem. His attention was redirected by the sound of someone clearing their throat noticeably loud from behind him. He jumped to his feet and faced the throng of savagely angry and women beginning to surround him. Oh, hello there ladies. You're all looking lovely today. The dark-haired woman who thought she was hallucinating before smirked at their discovery. He received a merciless beating at that point in time, and because the women were both beautiful and not trained in combat, he had no choice but to take it without retaliation. The spandex-wearing Junin from Leaf seemed like a mere greeting card after that. Quote. Whoa. Haku wasn't certain what had just happened. Out of nowhere, a swirling mass of sand blew into Kuro and dissipated to reveal a small red-haired boy. It was enough to throw Naruto for a loop. Are you alright? The blonde was shouting even though the boy who had appeared was currently unconscious. Haku sighed to himself upon seeing his friend's reaction. He is very excitable. He and Naruto went to the boy's side to inspect him. He was deathly pale and covered in perspiration. His face was drawn up in a look of total despair. Naruto was quiet for a long moment before asking, "Is he dead?" Haku frowned to himself. Was he dead? He of all people should be able to recognize such a state. He placed his hand carefully over the nameless boy's parted mouth. He drew a weak breath. No, he's breathing, Naruto. He reported. The blonde boy had a look of worry etched onto his face. He could not explain why he was so concerned for the well-being of a person he didn't even know. Naruto lowered his voice. What do you think happened to him? Haku shook his head. I don't know. What in the world is this about? Hiroshi wondered out loud as he squatted down beside the two children in his charge. This poor child just tumbled out of cloud of sand. That's not something you see every day. Hiroshi-san, is he hurt? I can't tell why he's in so much pain. Haku observed as the boy twitched and jumped without any clear reason. Hiroshi shook his head. It's hard to tell, Haku, he could be very sick. Maybe it was all that sand. Naruto folded his arms and squinted his eyes. Nah, I don't think so. It kinda looked like that sand was keeping him safe. Hiroshi and Haku both looked at Naruto strangely. He certainly did have an interesting perspective, although a huge cloud of sand didn't at first look safe. We have to help him, Hiroshi-san. Haku resolved and Naruto nodded in fierce agreement. Hiroshi looked immensely overwhelmed. I don't know, I already have you two to look after, and this little one seems to be in very bad shape. I'm not sure where to start. Haku looked at him pleadingly, but we have to do something. Please, Hiroshi-san. Even Naruto called to him with familiarity. He already had taken in 2 children, what was one more? Hiroshi nodded to them. All right, Haku, go fetch some water for this poor child. Naruto, there should be a small bedroll by the cart. Can you spread it out for him? Both answered in unison, yes, Hiroshi-san. They both dashed back to Hiroshi's cart to go about their appointed tasks. Hiroshi bent down and scooped up the small boy, wondering what had happened to him. He laid the boy out on the futon Naruto had quickly prepared, and Haku returned hastily with a bowl of water. Hiroshi helped the boy into a sitting position. Okay, Haku, now just tip some of that water into his mouth. He instructed. Meticulously, Haku let the unconscious boy take a small sip of water, and he involuntarily leaned up for more. Hiroshi noticed this behavior and concluded that the boy must have been without food or water for a long while. Is he gonna be alright? Naruto was leaning against Haku's shoulder to get a better look at the red-haired boy. Haku was nearly as antsy as Naruto was. Hiroshi sighed. I think he'll be alright. We'll have to keep watch to see when he wakes up. Maybe then he can tell us what happened to him. Right. Naruto put on a serious face and crept up onto the cart beside Haku. Hiroshi sat down as well with another deep sigh. Good grief. And as if their day hadn't been long enough, Hiroshi watched with detached concern as a white-haired man with red markings under his eyes lumbered towards them in a seemingly foul mood. He walked with a limp and a scowl was plastered on his face as approached. The cart's occupants looked at him soundlessly until he stopped in front of them. A twig was stuck in his hair. Just as Jiraiya was about to begin ranting to the odd troop about what mayhem he had went through, he felt as if he had been warped back to Konoha. Bright blonde hair, ocean blue eyes, and that face. It was the spitting image of his former student. Jiraiya blinked his eyes in disbelief. He must be losing his damn mind. He was well aware that his protege had a son years ago who resided in the Leaf Village and was under the care of the third Hokage. And he knew that the child had been named Naruto. There was no way he could have snuck away without someone taking notice. This was an important kid. He took a moment to regard the blonde child, trying to verify if it was indeed the one he had in mind. The small boy just gave him a questioning look and seemed ready to shout a snappy remark. The resemblance was just plain freaky. This is him all right, but how the hell did he get here? That is negligence if I ever saw it. It quickly occurred to the sage that he ought to return to the Leaf Village as soon as possible. If he didn't, he could be held responsible if the Kyuubi fell into the wrong hands. After a few moments of ordering his thoughts, Jiraiya remembered why he was so infuriated. Right. Have any of you seen a tornado pass by here by any chance? Jiraiya asked, pulling debris out of his long, white locks. Naruto immediately identified the man before him as a complete weirdo. Haku gestured to the unconscious boy as an answer and Jiraiya gave the child a quick glance. Okay, so the kid was outlandish, but something on the boy's arm immediately drew his attention. A faintly visible, calligraphic arrangement was glowing on the boy's upper arm. A seal, he mentally groaned. Well, I'll definitely have to look into this circus then. He just showed up in a dust storm, though I am not sure how. Hiroshi explained to the sage, he may have some sort of illness or, well, it's hard to say. Jiraiya nodded. I think I may know what the kid's problem is. He certainly caused a bit of trouble for me. He remembered the earlier incident when he had been brutally assaulted by a crowd of angry women, all because of some red-haired imp. Naruto decided it was time to share his 2 cents. Hey old man, why the heck is your hair so long? Naruto could no longer contain himself. What are ya trying to pretend you're a girl or something? You aren't exactly the definition of normal yourself, kid. He countered. You've got leaves sticking out of your hair like me, if you didn't notice. What is this? Lord of the Flies. Hey. Naruto stood up and pointed a finger at Jiraiya. You can't talk to me like that, old man. I'm going to be the Hokage someday. Jiraiya smirked. Oh really? Then what are you doing outside of the Leaf Village, squirt? Naruto was fuming while Haku could only watch. I'm training, that's what. Naruto barked, nearly falling off of the cart. Right. Hiroshi smiled slightly. Naruto would never run out of energy. Naruto, sit down before you hurt yourself, the fat man admonished. My apologies, sir, he's had a difficult day. Jiraiya shrugged. Yep, so have I. Haku was again keener to detail than his friend. Are you a ninja, sir? Haku asked curiously, noting his forehead protector with the kanji for oil on it. The sage seemed to inflate. Why yes. I am the legendary Toad Sage Jiraiya, today gracing you with my presence. Naruto didn't buy it. You still look like a crazy old man to me. He snickered. Jiraiya snorted. You're right, Hokage-sama, I'll deal with you later. He then turned to Hiroshi. I'm afraid I'm a bit behind on my research at the moment, but I'll come back in the morning to check up on the Sand Kid. And the smart mouth too, he's strayed too far from home. The pudgy man nodded. I'd appreciate it. Will he be alright until then? Jiraiya was busy trying to air out a saturated notepad. Yeah, just keep that squirt hydrated and he'll live. He's too exhausted to cause any more trouble. The merchant nodded uncertainly and Haku looked curiously at the Toad Sage. He wasn't exactly what he had expected a ninja to be like, and apparently Naruto shared his opinion. Jiraiya departed, cursing under his breath that his notes had been ruined. Damn Sand Kid. The next morning dragged in slowly. Sunlight peeked over the horizon and Hiroshi was snoring loudly. It had been a difficult night. To his good fortune, Naruto managed to tucker himself out and fall asleep. Haku on the other hand kept a quiet, overnight vigil over the nameless boy even against Hiroshi's wishes. He was determined to make sure that he would be alright. It wasn't easy. Haku had the task of giving the boy water, and at some points slipped in and out of consciousness while on watch. Hiroshi had gone through it as well, yet he would often wake up to the incoherent rambling of the redhead and his thrashing. The man could only wonder what made him suffer so. It appeared that Jiraiya hadn't explained enough when he said to keep him hydrated. In Hiroshi's opinion, he needed to be hospitalized, he was just that ill. At one point in the night, Hiroshi thought the boy was dying when he suddenly began screaming bloody murder into the darkness of Kuro's streets. He had certainly given Hiroshi and his wards a good scare. Naruto, however, almost immediately fell asleep again afterwards, and Haku was desperately trying to console the unconscious boy. Hiroshi wasn't sure there was much else they could do besides what Jiraiya had instructed. Hiroshi had to wonder, did the legendary sage in fact know what was afflicting the boy? He had only a brief look at him and had not made a big deal out of it, even though he appeared to be at death's door. Or maybe the emotional equivalent. Haku was still awake at daybreak. He was slowly beginning to nod off as the sun rose in the sky. He was too anxious over the boy's condition to get any rest. Still, he began to succumb to the effects of his sleep deprivation. Haku rested his chin against his chest. The bowl that had once contained water for the red-haired boy was empty, and slipped out of his hands silently. I can't fall asleep. Haku began to snore gently just as Naruto sat up and stretched. He looked over to Haku, noticing his predicament. He stood up and looked towards Hiroshi, who was next to him on the ground. I guess I'll let them sleep. Now I have a chance to train. His definition of training was jumping around through the treetops until one could do it blindfolded. And so he went on his merry way. When I finish, I'll make ramen for everybody and see how the new kid is doing. Naruto leapt up into a nearby tree and wondered to himself if he would be able to show Haku to jump in the same fashion. It would be a helpful ninja trait. Two green eyes blinked open. The light was painful at first, but after adjusting, they were able to take in the surrounding sights. Where am I and why am I so comfortable? Gaara turned his head slightly to look at the cushion he had been resting on. A bedroll. I'm not on the ground. He then turned to his right and nearly had a heart attack upon finding another person so close to him just sleeping. I thought everyone was afraid of me. Gaara gazed at the snoring boy. He felt strange seeing someone so relaxed. The boy curled up beside him on the cart seemed so peaceful, it was an expression he could hardly recall. Gaara observed the dark-haired boy beside him curiously. He couldn't be much older than himself and he appeared careworn. He sat up groggily. His head felt like a scrambled egg, and he rubbed his temples gingerly while he tried to remember what happened. Yoshimaru, Tamari, Kankuro, and his escape from Suna. What a nightmare it had been. The voice that had been inside his head was at the moment silent, although during the night he could hear it whispering to him. It told him to get up and do terrible things. Yet he was in no physical or emotional state to obey, and so the voice died down. But he didn't know how long it could last. Haku had felt the shift in weight on the cart, and opened his eyes a margin to observe the movement. Oh, he's awake. He felt his eyelids droop again. He's awake. Haku's eyes snapped open in surprise. The ailing boy was awake and seemed to be just fine, as Jiraiya had predicted. The boy looked inquisitively at Haku, as if he had no idea how to act. He really didn't. Haku couldn't help but smile as he so often did. Good morning. How are you feeling? Gaara's brain was experiencing an overload. What did that boy just say? Was he just nice to me? Does he actually care? Haku was still smiling even when he gained no immediate response. The boy seemed frazzled and unaware of what had occurred between the time he had pleaded for help and the present. I'm Haku. He spoke again, trying to encourage the boy to talk. The response was concise. Gaara. Haku nodded. Nice to meet you, Gaara. Gaara felt compelled to say the same. It was nice to meet Haku, a person who wasn't out for his blood, but no words came to him. Somehow Haku seemed to understand. Are you thirsty? He didn't wait for an answer, and he stood to refill the bowl with water from a nearby well. Gaara stared at the sight and thought to himself, wow, I must have died and went to that really nice place. While Gaara sat on the cart contemplating the situation, he was startled by a loud shout from his right. Hey, Haku, is he awake yet? Oh no, I must be in that other place. As Haku walked back bearing a full bowl of water, he regarded Naruto as he returned to the cart. Gaara was sitting up, wasn't he? Did Naruto really have to ask? Oh well. Yes, Naruto. This is Gaara. With a flying glomp, Naruto spastically soared through the air and onto the cart to greet Gaara. He landed a bit too forcefully and knocked Gaara from his seat at the edge. He tumbled to the ground in bewilderment. What a first impression that was. Whoops. Sorry, Gaara. Naruto pulled him up and dusted off his shirt. You know, Haku and I were really worried when you blew in Harem. What is the matter with you children? Hiroshi was awake, and not pleased with how Naruto had been throttling the red-haired boy. The blonde boy rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I didn't mean to send him flying like that, honest. Here you go. Haku handed the bowl of water to Gaara and he gratefully accepted it. Thank you. Naruto huffed. Take it easy, Naruto, he'll be fine. Hiroshi chuckled, patting the boy's head. Naruto considered his actions for a moment and decided to emulate Haku's behavior, in the hope he could make another friend. I'll make us some breakfast, Naruto volunteered, impressing Haku and Hiroshi. Maybe you can tell us how you got here, Gaara. Gaara finished gulping down the water he had been given. He nodded to them, not very sure how to explain it. While Naruto was busy fishing through his bag for ramen, Hiroshi was relieved to see Jiraiya appear. He looked very pleased and he was flipping through a new notepad. Well, the sage got a good look at Gaara. It seems like the sand kid is alright. Gaara looked towards Jiraiya strangely. He was having a hard time getting used to all the odd people he met. Haku watched Jiraiya with admiring eyes, while Naruto only sniffed disdainfully at his presence. Kid, what's your name? Jiraiya was never too blunt. Gaara gave the man a fierce look, inclined to bite back. Why should you care? Or, leave me alone. For the first time I've actually met some nice people. But what he said was, Gaara. He had a default response. Jiraiya put his research pad away and went over to the red-haired boy beside the cart. He had overheard a rumor a few days earlier that the Cage's youngest child had been reported missing. Even more curious was that small squads of Chunin and Junin had been quietly dispatched to search for the boy throughout the 5 countries had not recovered him yet. It was unusual that the Cage wouldn't start an uproar amongst all of the hidden villages when his son had vanished. The smell of foul play hung in the air. There had to be a reason for the boy's disappearance. Jiraiya still wasn't very interested in such a chaotic political situation, but the fact that the boy named Gaara had blown into Kuro in a whirlwind of sand, causing him grief in the process, was enough to make him suspect the kid was the one in question. Gaara's intense eyes reflected a painful experience. And his use of sand made Jiraiya conclude that the boy was certainly the Cage's son. He knew for a fact that the fourth Cage could manipulate gold dust, and he had a hunch that his children may also carry such an ability. He had also heard through the grapevine that the Jinchuriki of Suna was unpredictable and dangerous despite his young age. Let me have a look at your arm, Gaara. The Toad Sage tried to be casual about it. Gaara looked at Haku and then to Hiroshi. They didn't seem to object. He lifted his arm and let Jiraiya inspect it, not caring for the reason why he wanted to do so. I thought so. This must be the imperfect seal of the Shukaku. In his vast knowledge of seals, he quickly recognized Gaara's ailment. Not only did he have the Jinchuriki from Hidden Leaf on his hands, but he had also discovered the one missing from Suna as well. Boy, do I need a drink. All right. He allowed Gaara to lower his arm and Naruto and Haku took a seat beside the boy. Naruto passed around cups of instant ramen. Haku, remembering how Naruto had devoured his noodles the last time, felt his appetite disappear again. Gaara only picked at the ramen disinterestedly. Hiroshi turned to the sage. Well, is anything wrong, sir? No, unless I admit the fact that we have two demon jailers right in front of us. Hey, I doubt the Cage wants Gaara back for friendly reasons. Now, how do I break it to the merchant? Nothing is, wrong per se. However, I'm under the strong impression that I should bring these two back to Konoha with me for safety purposes. Jiraiya indicated Naruto and Gaara who were slurping noodles. Gaara paused, his eyes widened and he turned to Naruto. This is good. Naruto was thrilled. I'm glad y'all like it, Gaara. Gaara couldn't believe how friendly the blonde boy was, although he did find his volume a bit high. Haku gingerly nibbled at the noodles, forcing the image of a binging Naruto out of his mind. Hiroshi watched them interact. Why only Naruto and Gaara? He had to ask. I believe they would be of special interest to the Hokage. Naruto especially, since he ran away from home. Jiraiya didn't want to get into too much detail. I understand. It would be better that way. I'm in no position for supporting children on my own, and they deserve a much better life than what I'd offer. Hiroshi agreed, but, if you must take Gaara and Naruto then I would like you to take Haku as well. Jiraiya mentally groaned, ah crap. I mean 2 is already bad enough. The fat man noticed the disapproving look on the Toad Sage's face. It's the only thing I'd ask of you. The boy needs training as a ninja and Konoha is where he can get it, right? Damn, how do I weasel out of this one? Well, I'm not in the habit of bringing just any kid to Hidden Leaf to become a shinobi. His chances of becoming one are slim. Jiraiya tried to be convincing. Sorry, I'm only taking these 2. Hiroshi sighed. I see. I'm sorry, Haku. Maybe I can take you there myself one day. The hefty man lamented inwardly. Haku had been listening and was completely devastated by the news. He turned to Naruto and Gaara, painful silence gripping him. How can I become a ninja now? Furious, Naruto threw his ramen cup at Jiraiya. Oh yeah, well, we're not going anywhere until you let Haku come with us. Naruto grabbed the boy protectively by the shoulders and then turned to his red-haired companion. Right, Gaara. Haku is nice, so why shouldn't he be allowed to go to Konoha? Haku comes with us. Gaara agreed and made Naruto's face lit up. What brats? Jiraiya frowned at the Kyuubi container. Oh, fine. But I don't want trouble out of any of you, got it? Haku was once again jovial. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama. The Toad Hermit smirked to himself, finally a bit of respect. Although Hiroshi was happy it had somehow worked out for the 3 youngsters, he had also felt somewhat disappointed. He wouldn't have anyone once they went with Jiraiya to the Hidden Leaf village. Jiraiya whipped out his notepad again and turned towards Hiroshi. It's settled. I'll be back at noon to pick them up. That should be enough time for goodbyes, right? Anyway, I have a bit of research to do until then. The merchant nodded. Very well. The sage was gone a moment later. eager to continue his research. At that point, the three boys had finished their breakfast, although Naruto's had been cut abruptly short. Naruto and Haku were chattering excitedly, while the more reserved Gaara listened, liking the way they described becoming shinobi. The merchant sighed to himself. How hard could a farewell be? Parting gifts. Haku asked as Hiroshi led them through a town market, but Hiroshi-san, we don't need any gifts. Naruto begged to differ, presents would be nice. Gaara frowned at Naruto. Did he often take advantage of people this way? Or was this a special occasion? Haku shared his thoughts. No, I suppose you don't, Hiroshi replied, but I want you to all have something to remember me by while you're off training to become ninja. We won't forget you, Hiroshi-san. Haku said quietly. Gaara detected the distress in the boy's voice, although Naruto was not as conscious of it. He made a beeline for a dango vendor and pointed to it enthusiastically. Hey, Hiroshi-san, I know what I want for my present. The blonde boy was excited. See, normally I would ask for ramen, but I get ramen all the time. So if I get dango, I'll think of you every time I eat it. Hiroshi saw the childish logic in his reasoning. All right, Naruto. Naruto was busy selecting his snack while Haku spoke to Gaara. Gaara, where exactly did you come from? If you don't mind my asking. He asked quietly, knowing it was more of a personal subject. The village hidden in the sand. Haku nodded. I see. I'm from the water country. Haku was easy to confide in, Gaara decided, although he wasn't prepared just yet to tell him how and why he had left Suna. Thankfully, the black-haired boy didn't ask any more questions. Thanks, Hiroshi-san. Naruto munched on his skewer of dango, and pranced back over to his companions. Hiroshi then turned to Gaara. He hadn't known the boy for that long, but already he was beginning to grow on him. He was reserved, almost shy. And his quiet nature was refreshing. Anything you had in mind, Gaara? He asked. Gaara was startled. A present? For me? This was something he was sure wouldn't happen again to him for a very long time. He scanned the area, not seeing anything he really wanted. Typically, a child his age would want sweets or a toy, but when he did finally find something that struck his fancy, Hiroshi was slightly confused. I can use that. Gaara pointed to a gourd that was large in proportion to his height. Hiroshi was puzzled why he would ever want such a strange thing as a parting gift. Are you sure, Gaara? Do you really want that? Hiroshi clarified. Haku also was perplexed. Why would you want that? Gaara went up to the vendor. An old woman watched as he removed the cork from the top of the gourd and then raised his hand. His companions watched in stunned silence as Gaara summoned the sand that was scattered all over the street. There was quite a lot of it. The sand lifted off the ground at Gaara's whim and neatly slipped into the gourd. Hiroshi, although caught off guard by such power, understood why the boy wanted it. A container. Naruto and Haku watched in awe as they had before. The blonde boy grinned to his friend. Wow, he's kinda like you, Haku, but with sand instead of water. Haku nodded. Yes, I guess so. Hiroshi nodded to the red-haired boy. All right, Gaara. I'll get it for you if you want it. The old woman nearly had a heart attack watching, and quickly wanted to appease the boy with the frightening power. Go on, just take it and go. How fortunate. Gaara wrapped his arms around the large gourd and waddled back to his companions. I just want to keep my sand with me. He explained. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I can see why. Hey Haku, maybe you should get one too, but for water instead. Haku shook his head. No, I don't want anything. I'll always remember Hiroshi. The merchant could understand why Haku was having a difficult time with the idea. Yes, Haku was overjoyed that he had the opportunity to go to the village hidden in the leaves, but he was hesitant to leave Hiroshi. The merchant had saved his life and become his dear friend in the process. It wouldn't be as difficult for Naruto and Gaara to say goodbye. And Hiroshi admitted to himself that he would sorely miss the boy from the water country as well. Hiroshi composed himself. This was no time to get emotional. The kids had a future now, and a seemingly bright one at that. It was all he had to know. Come on, you three. Hiroshi waved them on. Let's get ourselves some lunch before Jiraiya-sama returns. Thankfully, that would take a while. The boys followed Hiroshi. All the while Naruto complained at why Haku hadn't gotten a present, and that he was wishing for more dango as well, but not for its sentimental value. There's something I want you to have, Haku, Hiroshi told him as they walked into a tea house. I know it would mean a lot to you. Haku was still firm in his decision, but I don't want anything, Hiroshi-san. The merchant chuckled. Well, that's just fine, Haku, but I want you to have it anyway. Gaara eyed the tea cakes spread out on the table hungrily. It had been days since he had eaten properly, and he was about ready to eat a horse, or at least the remainder of all Naruto's ramen. Are ya hungry, Gaara? Naruto gave him a slap on the back. I am too. He apparently was always hungry. And the close contact Naruto was introducing him to almost made Gaara want to give him a good whack. Still, he wanted to exercise more self-restraint, a small, first step on his way to learning to control his power. Even if it was tough to get used to, surely it was a change for the better. Gaara wondered if Haku had the same feeling about Naruto. After lunch, Naruto began to describe the beauty of Konoha as they returned to Hiroshi's stand. Jiraiya was waiting for them. The sage was busy with editing his book, however, and wasn't too anxious for their arrival. Are there lots of ninja in your village, Naruto? Haku absorbed all of what he was told, even if it had been slightly exaggerated. Yup, tons of them, he answered. He was eager to go home. He hadn't expected to miss it so much. Gaara spoke up. My village has lots of ninja too. Naruto squinted his eyes in realization. Oh, yeah, that's right. Where are you from again, Gaara? He's from the Hidden Sand Village. Haku informed him. Naruto had heard of the place before, but not in detail, so he only nodded to Gaara. It was when he caught sight of Jiraiya his pleasant mood turned sour. He disliked the sage for a reason he could not yet put his finger on, even if he did hold a mild respect for the old nin. One day, he would understand what that research was all about. Hey, old man, tell me again why we have to travel with you. The blonde boy complained. Jiraiya didn't even look up from his work, because I'm the only one around who can take your sorry little butts to Leaf. Naruto was offended. Quit talking like that to us, old man. Naruto lacked the ability to practice what he preached. I apologize for my lack of respect, Hokage-sama, but you aren't exactly rolling out the welcome wagon either. He muttered to himself after that. Squirt. Jiraiya couldn't believe that he had to be the one to find the runaway Kyuubi vessel. Gaara frowned at Naruto as well as the sage. He had to put up with this bickering for the entirety of their journey. He wasn't looking forward to it. Haku, Hiroshi beckoned the farm boy over. Come here for a moment, will you? He slipped away from his companions and went up to his guardian. Yes, Hiroshi-san. Take this. The fat man handed Haku a long scarf. It looked almost new. It's from the water country. I just want you to have something from your homeland while you're training. It wasn't very useful since the weather would be warmer in fire country, however the boy was overcome with gratitude. The gift meant a lot to him. Haku tied it around his waist and beamed up at the thoughtful merchant. Thank you, Hiroshi-san. The boy felt tears sting his eyes, but he held them back. He was supposed to be happy, right? He was going to a better place where he could achieve his goal. So why was he so sad? I know you've been through much, Haku, even if you haven't told me all about it. Hiroshi patted him on the head, but I just want you to know that I believe in you. The merchant turned to the other boys as well. I believe in all of you. I know that you'll all make fine shinobi someday. Jiraiya snickered inwardly, doubting the notion. They hadn't shown very much promise and had all appeared to be misfits. Still, he knew it was a sentimental moment and he decided not to ruin it. Naruto sniffled loudly. He too had grown attached to the old merchant. He and Haku gave Hiroshi a big hug, and when Gaara only watched with mild curiosity, Naruto dragged him into it as well, nearly suffocating him. Jiraiya sighed. Did farewells really have to be this difficult? Hiroshi chuckled at Haku and Naruto's sad faces, and Gaara's blue one. They certainly were an odd bunch, a group of outcasts, but they were his outcasts, and he was fond of them all. Well, farewell for now. He each patted them on the head one last time. I'm sure we'll see each other again sometime. Naruto nodded. Alright. He then chuckled to himself. Hey, I'm starting to sound like Hinata-chan, boy do I miss her. Gaara turned to Naruto. Who's Hinata? While Naruto rambled on about his only friend in the Leaf Village, Haku smiled at Hiroshi. I promise Hiroshi-san, I'll become a strong ninja and I'll come back and take you to Konoha when I can. The merchant nodded to Haku. I know, Haku. Are you ready? Jiraiya asked, putting away his naughty book. You don't have to go if you don't want to. I apologize, Jiraiya-sama. It's time. The merchant nudged his wards along. Go on now, boys. Bye, Hiroshi-san. Naruto bade him farewell, ready to go and see Konoha again, busying himself by making verbal jabs at the Toad Hermit. Gaara's green eyes scanned over Hiroshi for a moment, but a small smile formed on his face. Goodbye. After the Kage's son had followed after Naruto, Haku looked up at Hiroshi, still hesitant to leave. Go on, Haku. It's all right, the fat man assured him. Haku nodded. I must go to the Hidden Leaf Village. Come on, Haku. Let's go. Naruto called back to him. With one last smile, Haku ran after his friends, promising to himself that he would make Hiroshi proud. 3 days later, Jiraiya was about ready to kill himself. Or at least kill Naruto. He was becoming insufferable, while Gaara and Haku at least remained quiet. Still, Jiraiya wasn't the paragon of patience and understanding these days, nor was he a very nurturing parent figure either. He was very out of practice with kids and it was beginning to show. Hey, old man, are we there yet? Naruto walked alongside the sage while Gaara and Haku kept a safe distance away. Jiraiya was about ready to explode. Well, hey old man, are you listening? The Toad Hermit's brow twitched. I'm gonna strangle this kid. Naruto. Haku tried to prevent the explosion. I think Jiraiya-sama is a bit tired. The blonde boy squinted his eyes. Ya really think so? Jiraiya led them along in wrathful silence, trudging with heavy steps and bloodshot eyes. He looks fine to me. Naruto shrugged. Gaara shook his head. Haku means you're bothering Jiraiya-sama. Just stay calm. We're only a day's walk from Konoha. Am I bothering you, Toad Sage guy? Naruto couldn't restrain himself. Yes. The Kyuubi's vessel smiled in satisfaction. Good. Punt. Naruto was booted into the tops of a nearby oak tree like a field goal. Suddenly, Jiraiya felt much better. Now, where were we? Haku watched as Naruto hurtled down through the branches. His face was red with indignation. What was that for, old man? The boy squawked. What do I look like? A football. Jiraiya paused and looked at him. No, I just had to put some space between us. Now let's be on our way. Gaara and Haku followed, but Naruto pounced on Gaara's gourd. Hey, wait a minute guys. Naruto was still determined to get on the sage's nerves. See, if he really is a legendary ninja he should be able to teach us some ninja techniques and stuff. I want to see him prove it. Haku and Gaara halted. Although their energetic friend went a bit overboard at times, they were interested in ninja skills as well. Jiraiya groaned when he noticed he had lost the favor of his other two wards. Ah, sheesh, not you two. I mean you guys were actually pleasant. Are you really going to listen to this blonde squirt? Haku nodded. The sage slapped his forehead in frustration. Naruto folded his arms across his chest triumphantly. Well, let's see it old man. You brat. We're only a few hours from Konoha and you have to pull this crap. We're not going anywhere until you teach us a ninja skill. The blonde confirmed. Jiraiya cursed under his breath and then smiled devilishly at him. Alright then, I'm sure this won't take long. Gaara sighed to himself. Was Naruto the only one who didn't realize Jiraiya was going to give him a hard time? Of course it won't take long. I can take anything you dish out. Apparently yes. Jiraiya shrugged. Very well then. I'll test all three of you. We'll begin with the basics of chakra control. I believe that you have all heard this term at least once, correct? Gaara and Naruto nodded, while Haku stood uninformed. What's chakra? Naruto was quick to answer his question. It's the energy that helps ninja do stuff. Could he be any vaguer? Gaara mumbled a better definition into Haku's ear while Jiraiya continued to explain. To start, I want you each to select a tree, a tall one, and climb it. The sage stated simply. Naruto laughed. That's easy. Is it? Well, good for you, Squirt, because there are few children your age I know who can get up a tree without using their hands. Jiraiya added. Naruto was floored. No hands. Run up a tree. No jumping. Gaara frowned. He wasn't very well acquainted with trees. This wouldn't be an easy task for him either. So, I suppose we just focus our chakra in our feet. Haku once again proved he had brains. On the farm boy gets it. Jiraiya hollered. Now, get to work. Oh, and here. He handed each of them a kunai. Make a mark when you reach your limit. I doubt you'll get very high. Jiraiya made himself comfortable on a nearby boulder and took out his newest volume of Ica Ica Paradise for editing. Naruto still was adamant about impressing the sage. No problem. He lunged for the oak tree while Gaara and Haku watched. He built a tremendous amount of speed, but lost focus when he began to travel in a vertical direction. Naruto tumbled backwards with a startled cry. The record to beat. 4 inches. The toad hermit glanced over at the boy who was bent double at the base of the oak. What's the problem, Squirt? You didn't have any trouble getting up into that tree before. Gaara turned to the sage. You helped him. True. In a painful way. Jiraiya smirked. Oh, that's right. Naruto stood up and brushed himself off. Oh yeah. I'll show you. This time Gaara ran up a tree as well. Although he didn't exceed Naruto's record by very much, he at least landed on his feet. Haku felt nervous. He had never used chakra before, at least, he hadn't noticed himself using it. He got a better grip on the knife in his hand and concentrated. Okay. I need to focus my chakra, focus it to my feet. He had made the educated guess that the force he drew upon to manipulate ice was what this chakra was. He did his best to feel it out intentionally. The grass beneath his sandals bent away from the force of his chakra, though Haku didn't let the achievement get to his head. Now, how much do I need to use? That was the question of the day. It seemed like Gaara and Naruto hadn't figured that out yet. Neither of them had gone beyond 10 feet as they dashed at their trees. I guess I'll have to take a chance. Haku got a running start while Gaara and Naruto both came back down to the ground. They paused to watch him. The dark-haired boy ran and then felt himself set foot on his chosen tree. Focus. My chakra. His feet stuck to the tree. So naturally he kept running. And running. And he felt no need to use his kunai. He was so focused, he knew that he wouldn't fall. Whoa. Haku. Naruto gasped and Gaara watched in shock as the farm boy went up, and didn't come back down. Suddenly, there was a thudding sound, and a few leaves floated down from the cedar tree. Jiraiya looked up and smirked. The farm boy really does get it. He muttered, fascinated. It was unprecedented. This was probably no ordinary farm kid. I'm at the top, Jiraiya-sama. Haku announced, still surprised over what he had accomplished. The sage nodded. I can see that. It appears you have perfect chakra control, Haku. Come back down and we'll try something a bit harder for you. He then turned back to the other two boys. Hey, did I say you could stop? Determined now more than ever, Gaara and Naruto began racing up their respective trees with twice the previous effort. While Jiraiya led Haku to a nearby pond, he considered to himself that Gaara and Naruto had a difficult time with their tasks because of all the chakra they had to tame. They both had immense reserves. He turned to the farm boy and pointed to the small pond behind him. You did well, kid. Now, apply the same concept to the water. Focus your chakra to your feet, and you can walk across the surface. Haku found it all too easy. Water. Water was completely at his command, although, that was something Jiraiya was unaware of thus far. Haku nodded, yes. Gaara watched from his tree as Haku strolled out onto the water's surface effortlessly. He gestured for Naruto to observe as well. They were both riddled with envy that it came so easily to him. Haku walked back and forth over the pond, as if he were still on land. Even though he had the opportunity to brandish his power, he feared Jiraiya may not take it as well as Naruto had. So he hid it. Jiraiya sighed, what next? Ask him to fly, I bet he can do it too. Alright Haku, that's enough. Hiroshi was right about you, you have the makings of a great ninja, but that doesn't mean you can slack off, got it? Jiraiya said as he left the water. Haku nodded, I understand. The farm boy quickly rejoined his companions to give them a few tips. A brilliant farm boy and 2 Jinchuriki. I need a drink. With Haku's advice, Naruto and Gaara were able to make it halfway up their trees. Yet after a short while, Jiraiya herded them on, assuring them they would have plenty of time to practice in Konoha. By the end of that day, Naruto had deflated himself, reducing his insults to the sage once every 15 minutes instead of twice every 5. The 3 boys were overwhelmed at the sight of Konoha's gates. Even Naruto was relieved to have arrived back at his village, even though the people there may not be as happy to see him. Jiraiya looked up to the guard standing watch. Hey, open the gate will you? His voice was gruff, I need to speak with the Hokage. Of course, Jiraiya, sir, the guard answered respectfully and then looked to the sage's companions as the doors slowly swung open. You've brought children with you. The 3 boys looked at each other excitedly. Konoha at last. The toad hermit sighed. I was trying to be a good person and bring them to a decent village, but they are making it really hard for me. You want 'em.